So guys, now I discuss the parts and function of cooling system and how well it works. The cooling system. First is the typical automotive engine cooling system consists of a radiator, fan, water pump, coolant reservoir, thermostat, heater core, and necessary plumbing for both the radiator and heating core. Then next is the engine is started, the water pump connected to it also begins to pump the coolant around the engine cylinder from the lower radiator tank into the coolant passages. The flow of the coolant is from the lower tank to the engine block, then to the cylinder head, and finally towards to the outlet for the radiator. The coolant begins to absorb the heat produced by the combustion process and flows towards the radiator inlet. However, the thermostat restricts the coolant to flow towards the radiator until the temperature of the coolant is not raised above the engine operating temperature, which is usually 200 to 250 degrees Celsius. If the heater inside the cabin is turned on, the coolant is made to flow through the heater core via the bypass hose. The heater core is a mini radiator which is used as a heater exchanger to transfer the heat from the coolant to the air that flows inside the passenger compartment. And the thermostat on the other end acts a regulating valve to control the coolant flow into the radiator and maintain the engine temperature within optimum range. And next is when the coolant passing through the thermostat is at a higher temperature, usually it is 180 Fahrenheit, the wax begins to melt. And the melting causes thermal expansions of the wax, which in turn pushes the rod and thereby allowing the coolant to flow outside. Fan is actuated by a thermostatic switch once the coolant flows outside the thermostat. The coolant past the thermostat valve enters into the radiator upper tank through the upper radiator nose. While following downwards, the coolant loses its heat to the air following past the space between the flat tubes. For better cooling effect, the heat transfer area is further increased by providing fins on the flat tubes. When the coolant reaches the lower tank of the radiator, the temperature of the coolant reduces considerably. This cold coolant is circulated back around the engine cylinder and the cycle is repeated.